The floor beneath me hums, and I already know something is wrong before anyone says a word. My name is Daniel Carter, and 6 months ago, I became the only human allowed to walk the halls of an alien warship called the Vorlath Ascendant. My job is simple on paper. I explain humans to aliens so nobody starts a war by accident. In practice, my job mostly means standing in a mess hall while a 7-foot-tall captain named Thelcorix Van tries to prove that my species is weaker than his. Today, the hum under my boots grows louder, and I feel my knees press down like invisible hands are pushing on my shoulders. Captain Van stands across from me, arms folded, his violet scales catching the white light of the ceiling. Behind him, 3 of his crew watch without blinking. A Kelvasi navigator named Torvun leans forward in his seat. A young engineer named Ilsa Vantrum stops typing on her console. Even the ship itself seems to be waiting for something to happen. "Ambassador Carter," Van says, his voice deep enough to rattle the cups on the table beside me. "I have increased the gravity in this room, 1.4 times what your body is used to. Walk to me." I do not argue. Arguing with Van only makes him try harder. I take 1 step, then another. My legs feel heavy, like I am wading through water up to my hips, but I keep my back straight and my breathing steady. This is not new to me. Long before I ever stepped onto an alien ship, I spent years working construction back home, carrying loads that made my body ache every single night. Heavy is not new. Heavy is just another Tuesday. I reach the captain and stop in front of him. His crest, that fan of skin behind his neck that changes color with his mood, flickers from proud orange to a dull, disappointed gray. He expected me to stumble. He expected me to fall. Instead, I am standing there with my hands in my pockets, waiting for whatever comes next. "You feel nothing," he says, and it is not a question. It sounds almost like an accusation. "I feel it," I answer. "I am just used to feeling things." The gray in his crest deepens, and I know what is coming before he even opens his mouth again. Van is proud. Van does not like losing, especially not in front of his own crew, so he does what proud people always do when the first plan fails. He raises the stakes. 1.7, he announces, and the moment the words leave his mouth, the hum beneath my boots turns into a low growl, and the whole room seems to lean downward, as if gravity itself just remembered it has teeth. This time it hits me harder. My shoulders drop, my spine complains. With a sharp pull I feel from my neck down to my heels. It is like wearing a heavy backpack after a full day of work, except the backpack is my own body, and there is no taking it off. I do not fall. I do not even stumble. Instead, I walk, slow but steady, toward the long metal bench at the edge of the room. Every step costs me more effort than the last, but I keep my breathing even, count my steps in my head, the way I used to count reps in a gym years ago, and when I reach the bench, I turn around and lower myself down. I do not collapse into the seat. I sit, calm, controlled, the same way anyone might sit down for dinner at home. The entire mess hall goes silent. Even the low hum of the ship's engines seems to fade into the background. Torvun stops leaning forward and simply stares, his mouth slightly open. Ilsa's fingers freeze above her console, and for a long moment, nobody moves. Van's crest does something I have never seen it do before. Every single plate along the fan lies completely flat, drained of all color, as if his body forgot how to show emotion for a second. "You sat," he says quietly. "That's usually what chairs are for," I reply, keeping my voice light, though my legs are burning underneath the table. "At 1.7 gravity," he continues, almost to himself, like he is trying to convince his own mind that what he just saw actually happened. "Our strongest cadets require mechanical support to remain standing at this level. You walked, you turned, you sat down, calmly, as if reaching for a drink. I was hoping there might be coffee, actually," I say. "Is there anything like that on this ship, or is it all just that gray paste you feed me every morning?" Nobody answers me. Ilsa has quietly turned her console toward me and begins recording, her wide eyes fixed on my face, as if she is watching something impossible unfold in front of her. Van steps closer, moving with careful control, both hands out slightly for balance. The same caution I would use if I had not spent half my life carrying heavy loads under ordinary human gravity. He studies me now, not with anger, but with something closer to confusion mixed with respect. He sits across from me, slowly, testing the weight with each motion, then finally settles into the seat, his eyes never leaving mine. "Ambassador," he says, his voice lower now, almost gentle. "I need the truth. What is your species' actual limit? I require the real number for my report to the Fleet Council." "1 gravity," I answer honestly. "Same as always. That never changed." "Then explain this," he says, gesturing toward me, toward the bench, toward the simple, unremarkable fact that a human being just sat down without any trouble at all. I take a moment before answering. I could give him a proud answer, something meant to impress him, but Van has never lied to me, not once in 6 months, and I decide he deserves better than a performance. "Where I come from, gravity is just the smallest thing trying to push us down," I say. "We have storms that flood entire cities in a single night. We have ground that shakes so hard it swallows buildings whole. We have oceans deep enough to crush metal like paper if you go down far enough. After growing up with all of that, 1.7 gravity just feels steady. It does not change its mind halfway through. It does not surprise you. After everything else we deal with, something steady almost feels like a rest." Van does not speak for a long moment. His crest slowly rises again, but this time, the color that spreads across it is not gray, and it is not the proud orange from before either. It is something new, something calmer, something that looks a lot like understanding. "Return the gravity to standard levels," he finally tells Ilsa, without turning to look at her, his focus still locked completely on me. "Yes, Captain," she says, and within seconds, the pressure eases from my shoulders, and my body feels light again, almost as if I could float straight out of my seat. Van leans back slightly, folding his hands together on the table. "I want this noted in the fleet archive," he says. "Add a new line to the cadet training records." Torvin finally finds his voice. "What line, Captain?" Van keeps his eyes on me the entire time he answers, like he has just solved a puzzle that turned out to be far simpler and far more interesting than he ever expected. "Note that humans do not fight against gravity," he says. "They adjust to it. They make peace with it, the same way they make peace with every hard thing life throws at them. It seems this species has been winning that quiet fight long before we ever arrive to test them." He reaches across the table and picks up the small device sitting beside my hand, the one I use to read messages and pass the time during long shifts on the ship. He turns it over in his fingers, studying the glowing screen with open curiosity. "What is this game?" he asks, pointing at the simple card layout still open on the screen from earlier that morning. "It's called Solitaire," I tell him, smiling now that my legs have finally stopped aching. "It's a way to pass time when you're waiting for something exciting to happen." "Teach me," he says, setting the device down between us, his crest glowing with something close to genuine interest now instead of pride or disappointment. I glance around the mess hall. Torvin has gone back to his seat, shaking his head slightly, muttering something under his breath that sounds like disbelief mixed with quiet respect. Ilsa is still watching the recording she captured, replaying the moment over and over, clearly planning to show it to someone later. I look back at Van, at the captain who tried 3 times today to prove that my species was fragile, and who instead learned something about us that no report or scan could ever fully explain. "All right," I say, pulling the device closer and setting up a fresh game between us. "But fair warning, Captain, I'm pretty good at this." He studies the screen closely, his expression sharp with focus, the same intensity he probably uses when guiding this entire ship through open space. "We will see," he replies, and for the first time since I stepped aboard this ship 6 months ago, his voice carries no challenge in it at all. Just curiosity, and maybe, just maybe, something close to friendship. Outside the small window across the room, stars drift by in complete silence, steady and endless, much like the quiet strength that just earned a little more respect from a captain who thought he already understood exactly what humans were capable of handling.